am very pleased. I think it's a very sensible judgment. It wasn't a complicated matter. Ultimately, the arguments put forward on behalf of the Isle of Wight Council amounted to, as the judge spelt out, if he was to believe and take it to its natural conclusion, their arguments, a single day's absence from school amounted to a criminal offence. And no court was ever going to agree that that was what regularly meant for the terms of the Education Act.
Mr. Baker, you must be very disappointed. It's going to be quite difficult to stop parents now taking their children out of school for holidays during term time.
I think you're quite right, but what we wanted today was clarity and guidance, clear guidance on what the law meant. And I'm afraid we've got the absolute opposite to that. Really, we've got a situation when, yes, without recourse, it looks as if parents can now take their children out of school for maybe up to 3 weeks a year. We've got a clearly shown in court was a link between educational attainment and attendance. So my worry is that those children who are taken out of school will suffer in their education, but it will also have a knock-on effect on the education of those who remain in the classroom and their planned activities, and also the work of teachers in the classroom. I understand that the government have already indicated they're going to look at this. I would certainly urge the Department of Education to do so urgently. One thing that happened in there was that the court effectively rejected the Department of Education's view on what constitutes regular attendance. And I think that's got to be a concern. We've got to get this tidied up, and that's all we've been trying to do throughout this process.
Mr. Platt, what's your reaction to that?
Sorry, Jonathan, that's not... I was in the same court as you. When you say the Department for Education's definition of regular attendance, what you mean is the person who responded to my Freedom of Information Act request, a very junior person in the Department for Education. You know, if the Department for Education honestly believed that regular attendance at school meant every single day, they would amend the legislation overnight. Section 444 wouldn't read a parent commits an offence if a child attends school regularly. It would say a parent commits an offence if the child misses any day at school without lawful reason. They could change it overnight, but that's not their position. MPs are not going to line up in the lobbies to criminalise hundreds of thousands of parents for taking their kids on holiday. It's never going to happen. You know, that's why we have primary and secondary legislation. Primary legislation goes before Parliament, and MPs have to put their democratic mandate on the line, and if parents don't accept that, they will be removed from office. And what they want to do is do it by the back door. What they want to do is say, well, we'll set the threshold as regularly, but we'll, in the Department for Education, construe that as every single day. And the judge said it can't possibly be every single day, because if it was every single day, the legislation would say every single day.
So it seems you're in a bit of a mess.
I think the Department of Education and schooling in this country is in a bit of a mess because we simply don't know what the situation is. Can you take your child out of school? When can you take your child out of school? Should you be able to take your child out of school without any control? As I say, it's clearly shown that there's a link between attainment and attendance at school, and that link has not apparently been accepted by the court, and I fear massive disruption to schooling across the country.
No, but the thing that stops parents taking their kids out of school, Jonathan, isn't the fear of your £60 truancy penalty notice. It's the fear of the damage it'll do to their kids' education. That's the restraining factor on parents. They're smart. They can work this out themselves. They know if I pull my kids out of school every time we go on holiday in term time and their attendance falls to 70, 60%, my child is going to suffer. So they don't do that. But when circumstances demand and they want to take their child out of school, they should be able to, and that's what the High Court has said. An unauthorised holiday of itself cannot amount to a breach of the legislation. It might, but it might be 3 or 4 weeks out of an academic year.
So just lastly, are you going to be taking your children out of school next year during term time?
I'm getting married in Santorini in 18 days. My kids are coming. They will not miss a day of school. The last time my kids went on holiday was to Barcelona a few weeks ago, and it was in half term and they didn't miss a day of school. I try as much as possible to take my kids on holiday when it's the school holidays, like everybody else. But sometimes you can't do that for whatever reason. And this mass fining, is there really, Jonathan, in all seriousness, 100,000 parents in this country who are so criminally incompetent as parents that it warrants dragging them to court? Do you think that, is that your assessment of parents in this country?
Just to give you the final answer.
I think what we have illustrated here is that there is uncertainty and concern over the system, and we needed certainty today. We haven't got it, so let's take it to government and see if we can actually define whether that position, whether the position the council took in court or something in between is the right position, so we actually all know where we stand. That's the absolute key to this, in my view.
Thank you.